Liverpool are in a very interesting and confusing situation this summer. Our legendary manager, Jurgen Klopp, recently departed and left behind a very good squad for the new manager, Arne Slot, to inherit. However, with the Euros and the Copa America happening this summer, a ton of key Liverpool players will be missing a majority of preseason, meaning Arne Slot won't be able to fully assess the squad and see what signings we should make in the transfer market, thus putting us in a position where we've become the only Premier League club not to make a major summer signing yet. But with Arne Slot assuring the fans that Liverpool still expect to do some business this summer, who should the club sign before this very important 2024-25 campaign? Well, let's take a look at some of the players who I believe would help the club significantly if we sign them. Let's start this off by talking about the defense first, specifically the center back position, since this is what apparently the Liverpool hierarchy aims to improve. Despite the club already having top center backs in the likes of Virgil van Dijk, the captain, Ibrahima Konate, a potentially world-class center back on his day, Gerald Kwanzaa, an up-and-coming center back who played a huge part last season, Joe Gomez, who played more at the left back position this past 23-24 campaign, but his first position is center back, and Sepp van den Berg, who has just returned from a season-long loan move at Mainz, where he demonstrated how good he can be over in Germany. And with Sepp van den Berg's future being up in the air, with reports of PSV Eindhoven wanting to sign him permanently, but if Arne Slot gives Sepp opportunities, he wouldn't mind staying at this, and I quote, big club. So who knows whether we actually need to sign a center back or not, but reportedly, with the center back position being something the club wants to improve on, we should talk about the defensive options regardless. Now I think the obvious pick on every Liverpool fan's mind is Piero Hincapié, the Ecuadorian Bayer Leverkusen center back. He just had a monstrous 23-24 season, where he played a huge role in helping Bayer Leverkusen win the Bundesliga undefeated, breaking Bayern Munich's 11 consecutive title streak in the process, helped win the DFB Pokal Cup, and made it to the Europa League final. However, for me, I don't think signing Hincapié is actually going to happen, just because if Bayer Leverkusen does end up selling Jonathan Tah to Bayern Munich, who by the way is the other crucial center back for Leverkusen, they would already lose one significant piece in the back, and I doubt Xabi Alonso is going to allow the club to lose two. So instead of choosing Hincapié, I'm going to go for his Ecuadorian teammate, the left-sided center back William Pacho from Eintracht Frankfurt, who I think is a much more realistic signing. The 20-year-old defender is coming off an incredible season in the Bundesliga, having great stats like being third in the Bundesliga for ball recoveries, being amongst the 93rd percentile, 8th in tackles and interceptions, being in the 82nd percentile, good in possession with him having almost 81 touches per game, 81st percentile for successful take-ons as a center back, and 76th percentile for carries, etc. But one of the most important aspects of his game is the fact that he's a left-footed center back, which is something that we actually never had in the Jurgen Klopp era, and something Arne Slot is actually used to having at his time with Feyenoord, with him deploying the left-footed center back, Hanko, most of the time back in the Netherlands. So with that, William Pacho becomes a pretty fitting profile for Liverpool, who like I said is pretty good offensively and in possession, which is something Liverpool will obviously have a lot of, and is also very good at his defensive duties, which is something you need if you want to play for a big club like Liverpool. And with his market value being only 35 million euros, which I'm assuming we will have to pay a little above that if we were to sign him, and the fact that we've had genuine leaks with him in recent history, I would say signing Pacho is pretty realistic, especially because Liverpool loves signing South Americans, so why not add another one? Now what are some other center back options that we should be looking at? Well, the other one I have in mind is also the 22-year-old left-footed center back Gonçalo Inácio from Sporting Lisbon, and this is also another player who we've had genuine links with in the past as well. And with him apparently having a 60 million euro release clause, I do kind of find it likely that Liverpool could pounce on this, especially because we're release clause FC. It does kind of fit our mojo. Now I think amongst Liverpool fans, Inácio is a highly regarded name, especially offensively, because with Ruben Amorim, the Sporting manager, with him having his tactics set up where his center backs are involved with the attack more often than not, Inácio's offensive stats as a center back are extraordinary, with him being in the 99th percentile for passes completed per 90, 99th percentile for passes attempted per 90, 94th percentile for expected assists, 99th percentile for passes into the final third, 95th percentile for passes into the penalty area, 99th percentile for progressive passes, 96th percentile for through balls, 99th percentile for goal creating actions, 99th percentile for touches, which means he's good in possession, 99th percentile for carries, 95th percentiles for carries into the final third, etc. You get my point. This guy's damn good offensively when you compare him to the other center backs in today's game. Now defensively, Inácio might not be as strong as William Pacho, for example, with him having lower defensive stats in tackles, interceptions, clearances, etc. But if you partner him up with someone like Van Dijk, for example, who is amazing defensively, I think Inácio could fit. And like I said, he does have a release clause, which completely fits to Liverpool's signing DNA. Staying on the topic of Sporting Lisbon though, another center back that I would be intrigued on for signing to Liverpool would be the 20-year-old Ivory Coast center back, Ousmane Diomande. I haven't really seen too many, or any genuine links between Liverpool and Diomande, but I think if we were looking for a future gem of a center back, he would be the guy. He's a modern day ball playing center back who cemented his place on the first team of a title winning Portugal side at the young age of 20. He loves to get involved in duels, and loves taking on players in 1v1 situations, usually coming out on top, with him having a ton of pace and power. He also is comfortable at driving the ball forward, with him being amongst the 81st percentile in progressive carries, and 82nd percentile percentile for carries into the final third. Overall, he is a very good attack-minded, but also defensively capable center back that should be on Liverpool's radar. And for me, I think one of his only main weaknesses is him in the air, with him being in the 96th percentile for aerials lost, which is not good in all honesty, especially for a center back. But overall, he is a real gem. Another issue I do have though, which is why I don't think Liverpool are linked to him at all that much, is that he's a right-footed center back, and we already have experts in that role with Van Dijk, Konate, Kwanzaa, etc. all being right-footed, which is why I don't think this signing is realistic. But if we were to look for another right-footed center back to bolster our ranks, he's the man. Now I don't want to take up too much time on the center back position because we got the whole attacking side of Liverpool to cover, but I'll just mention one more center back that I think we should at least inquire about, but I doubt it'll happen. It's the 24-year-old German Borussia Dortmund left center back Nico Schlotterbeck. I think this man is criminally underrated, and he's one of the key reasons why Dortmund even made it to the Champions League final last season, with his assist in the first leg semi-final against PSG and him winning the corner that Dortmund scored off of in the second leg being the whole reason why Dortmund went that far. But overall, I just think Schlotterbeck would fit into Arne Slot's Liverpool system perfectly, especially offensively, because look at his stats on the passing side of things. He's literally in the bright green for almost everything. I'm not gonna read everything out to y'all, but just look at this guy, man. He's the KDB of center backs. His defensive stats are pretty good too. Of course, it isn't as strong as his passing, but it's still relatively good. Thing is, he just signed to Dortmund like last season from Freiburg, so I highly doubt Dortmund are gonna let him go like one season in. I would love to have him though. Anyways, I think I talked about the center back options enough. Let's now move on to the midfield section, specifically the center defensive mid role, more commonly referred to now as the 6. Because to be honest, for the 8 and 10, if we even use a 10, those positions are pretty extensively covered already, with Liverpool having players like Dominic Szoboszlai, McAllister, Curtis Jones, Harvey Elliott, Ryan Gravenberch, Fabio Carvalho potentially, and Trey Nyoni now coming up too, etc. So the 6th position is going to be the one that Liverpool is going to be looking at. In fact, in the past couple of summers, Liverpool have tried to sign a potentially world-class CDM, but we've just failed. They tried to go for Tchouaméni back in the summer of 2022, but even though Tchouaméni had an apparent phone call with Jurgen Klopp, he opted to join Real Madrid. The last summer, Liverpool were ready to break the bank for Moises Caicedo, setting a Premier League record, but instead, he opted to join Chelsea for a bigger amount, and even Romeo Lavia, who also joined Chelsea. So Liverpool have been in the market for a 6 in the past couple of seasons. It's just that the business hasn't gone our way. But with Wataru Endo clearly having his limitations, even though he was a very good player for us last campaign, don't get me wrong, but at 32 years old, with him not exactly being world class, and with Stefan Bajcetic having sky high potential, but is coming back from a long injury, I think the Reds know that they need a solid 6. But before I list my defensive midfield options, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it, and it means a lot, so thank you. And also, if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. So if you want to, feel free to hit me up with that follow. Thank you. So for my first option at this position, I'm going to start with the 25-year-old Brazilian defensive midfielder at Atalanta, Ederson, who played a huge part in destroying us 3-0 in the Europa League quarterfinals, and also played a part in winning the whole competition by breaking Bayer Leverkusen's undefeated streak, and he's also a player that we've had genuine links with this summer, meaning that he is a realistic signing. Now Ederson played most of his time at Atalanta as a double pivot, which is something Arne Slot might do tactically for this upcoming season, making him fit to Slot's tactics like a charm. He's also what I would describe as a multi-dimensional midfielder. He's good offensively, being the 92nd percentile for goals expected and 84th percentile for goals compared to other defensive midfielders. He's in the 81st percentile for progressive passes, having 6.56 of those per 90, 88th percentile for goals/shots on target, 80th percentile for progressive passing distance, 75th percentile for long passes completed, 77th percentile for passes into the final third, 81st percentile for passes into the penalty area, etc. And he's also good defensively too, being in the 78th percentile for tackles won amongst the other midfielders, 84th percentile for dribbles tackled, 81st percentile for passes blocked, 83rd percentile for tackles and interceptions, etc. So as we can see, he's good both offensively and defensively, which is exactly the type of 6 that Arne Slot would like in his system. So with Ederson, this signing does make perfect sense. The one issue I do kind of have with this Ederson signing though has nothing to do with them. It's the fact that Atalanta are apparently prepared to let Koopmeiners, another elite midfielder for them, go to Juventus, meaning they're already going to lose one key player centrally. And I'm not so sure that the manager Gasperini or the rest of the Atalanta board are too keen on letting 2 key midfielders leave, meaning I think Ederson would probably stay unless an unrefusable offer comes through from Liverpool, which is something I hope we do, since I believe Ederson is the most realistic and quality 6 signing that we can make in the market right now. Now speaking about quality Brazilian defensive midfielders, the next person on this list plays like a Brazilian but he's not. It's the 24-year-old Colombian Palmeiras player Richard Rios. And my god, this dude was lighting it up this past summer with Colombia at the Copa America, and with the ladies too, and I don't even blame the ladies. In the most respectful way possible, this dude Richard Rios is handsome as fuck.
What did he say?
Anyways, going back to the football, Richard Rios is the most modern 6 that you'll ever see. He has a futsal background, so when he's pulling out tricks and skills on the pitch, it's because of that. And with him playing in Brazil, it only makes sense. Plus, with him also being multifaceted, meaning he could definitely play the 6, 8, or probably the 10, he would fit Arne Slot's style pretty well. However, there are 4 main issues when it comes to signing Richard Rios. 1, he plays in the Brazilian league, and he's never played outside South America, besides a brief stint over in Liga MX, the top division of Mexico. So, signing a guy with no European experience could be a bit of a ballsy move from Arne Slot and Liverpool. Second, his price tag is simply outrageous. Although he's only valued at 10 million euros on transfer market, he apparently has a release clause of 75 million euros. And I don't really know whether Palmeiras are willing to negotiate lower than that, since they obviously would want to keep a player of his quality, especially after losing Endrick this summer too. And I'm not so sure that Liverpool would be willing to pay a 75 million euro risk, especially when we were strongly linked with Andre from Fluminense not so long ago, who was much cheaper. But even then, we didn't sign him, so I'm not really sure whether we would with Richard Rios either. Third, he's currently strongly linked with Manchester United, but United are linked to every player that's hot right now, and with them undergoing a massive transformation this summer, it only makes sense. And with them being close to signing Manuel Ugarte at the time of recording this, I'm not so sure they would still be in for Richard Rios, but if they do sign him too, fair enough. And fourth, his offensive stats are solid, as some of his defensive stats are good too, like being the 95th percentile for blocks, 95th percentile for passes blocked, and 94th percentile for tackles in the attacking third. But some of his defensive stats are relatively weaker compared to the other defensive midfielders, in terms of being on the lower end statistically in interceptions, tackles overall, and 1v1 challenges defensively. Despite that though, I really like Richard Rios, and I think he would kind of be a Thiago Alcantara replacement, and I would be pleased if Liverpool sign him, but I'm not so sure we will given the risks. Now next up in the CDM position, we got Martin Zubamendi, the 25-year-old Spanish defensive midfielder for Real Sociedad, who did come on in the second half of the Euro 2024 final for Rodri and excelled, playing a huge part in Spain winning the Euros. Now not many people knew of Zubamendi before the Euros, and to be fair, I didn't either, but he is good at what he does, which is being good defensively, like being good in the air and good at interceptions. But offensively is where he truly lacks, because although he's in the high percentile range for shots outside the box on target, besides that, there isn't much statistically to his offensive game, which is why although Zubamendi would be a welcome signing on my end, I'm not so sure that it would happen. Another player that we've not been linked to whatsoever, but I would like, would be the American Johnny Cardoso, the 20-year-old defensive midfielder at Real Betis right now. He is exceptional at the defensive side of his game. I mean, just look at the stats and how much green there is for defensively, but offensively, he is pretty weak. And with that, although I would like the signing as an American Liverpool fan, I'm not so sure it would happen, despite reports saying that Real Betis would be willing to sell him if an offer of 30 million to 35 million euros came about. Then there's players like João Neves, but with him being linked to PSG heavily at the time of recording this, I doubt it'll happen. Overall though, I think the best and most realistic option would be Ederson for the DM role. But right now in this market, I'm genuinely not too sure on who will be a good fit to sign if Atalanta potentially rejects our future bids for him. That's enough midfielder talk. Let's now move on to the forward line, who could use an additional player. Now it's no secret that we're pretty stacked offensively, especially on the left hand side, with Luis Diaz being one of the best left wingers in the world, and then there's Cody Gakpo, who although has played everywhere across the front line for Liverpool, he's definitely best from the left, with him actually winning the Golden Boot at the Euros from that position for the Netherlands. And then there's the likes of Darwin Nunez, Diego Jota, and even now Fabio Carvalho, who can play on the left like we've seen him do in preseason. Now the reason I'm mentioning all of this is because the right hand side for Liverpool is a complete 180 flip, because the only natural attacker from that side is literally Mohamed Salah, who is rumored to be leaving next season, which means we need to find a replacement for him or for someone to come through and be willing to ride on the bench this season and get his chance to shine in the following campaign. And despite everybody in the world knowing this, we're still being linked to a shit ton of left wingers, especially Anthony Gordon, who I can see being a realistic signing. Let me land. Now don't let Anthony Gordon being a former Everton player fool you. He's a Red, and he has been one since a young age. Plus, he's expressed his desire to play for Liverpool according to reports and would welcome the idea. Additionally, even though Liverpool have been pretty quiet this summer, the one thing that everybody knows is that Liverpool were actually interested in signing Anthony Gordon back in June, and we were actually in negotiations with Newcastle. That's because Newcastle were desperate to try and fit under the Premier League's profitability and sustainability rules, more commonly known as the PSRs, where a club has to limit the financial losses that Premier League clubs can incur over a 3-year period, meaning Newcastle were super close on receiving a punishment if they didn't sell one of their players fast, and because of that, they were willing to let Anthony Gordon go to save them. But with Minte being sold to Brighton, Newcastle are now safe, and they're not that desperate anymore to let go of one of their superstars, Anthony Gordon. Additionally, when Liverpool and Newcastle were discussing Anthony Gordon's transfer, they couldn't agree on a price, and apparently Newcastle wanted Jero Kwanzaa in exchange, which was a hell no from Liverpool, and the talks ended. So why am I bringing this up now? Well, because the rumors have started to make their rounds on social media again, and just because a deal wasn't agreed a month or two ago doesn't mean that things can't change. The thing regarding Anthony Gordon for me though is although I can see him fit into Arne Slot's style perfectly, and some would say even better than Luis Diaz and Cody Gakpo, I just don't think we need another left winger, and I think the club's hierarchy knows that too. In fact, I think they were just preparing on the off chance that Luis Diaz leaves to Barcelona or PSG this summer, and with Barca to focus on securing Nico Williams for the left wing position instead, I don't think Luis Diaz is going to leave. So I think if Luis Diaz were to leave maybe next summer, I think Anthony Gordon would be the #1 signing that Liverpool would want. But I think that's more of a next summer thing than this summer. So although I think this signing is quote unquote realistic, I wouldn't say that I think it's going to happen, at least not right now. Let's now move on to the right wing position, a position we actually do need numbers for regardless of whether Mo Salah leaves next summer or not. And to start this position off, let's go with someone who we were actually linked to this summer, and still might be, the 23-year-old Real Sociedad and Japanese winger, Takefusa Kubo. The ex-Real Madrid and Barcelona product is extremely gifted technically and attacking wise, with him being in the 91st percentile for progressive carries, 84th percentile for shots on target, 88th percentile for goals expected, 84th percentile for expected assists, 89th percentile for key passes, 88th percentile for crosses, being really good at corner kicks, 83rd percentile for shot creating actions, 82nd percentile for successful take-ons, and 93rd percentile for carries into the penalty area, etc. He's a special Japanese talent who is really good at dribbling and bringing the ball forward for him and his team, and we can see that by the stats I've just mentioned. With that, I think he will be a pretty good Mo Salah replacement. What he already does well at Real Sociedad is everything that Salah does well for Liverpool. And although yes, Salah is much better, but the point is to mold Kubo into Mo Salah's replacement. He's not going to be better than him before he joins, obviously. The only big difference that I would say regarding Takefusa Kubo is his finishing. His best ever season in everyone's eyes was this past 23-24 campaign, but in the 41 games he took a part in, he only scored 7 goals and got 5 assists. Now sure, these are pretty good stats, but they're nowhere near Mo Salah's stats before he joined Liverpool, when he was at Roma. Now you might argue that unlike Jurgen Klopp's system, where the wingers were more of an attacking threat in terms of Sadio Mane and Mo Salah, and Arne Slot's system, it might be different, where he wants Darwin Núñez, Jota, Gakpo, etc. to be the ones finishing the chances and not the wingers like a Takefusa Kubo. But still, although I would say that Takefusa Kubo would be a good Mo Salah replacement, and a replacement that I find quite realistic, since Sociedad are apparently open to selling him if the price is right, the finishing is a big question mark that would need to be addressed. However, with that being said, if Takefusa Kubo signs for Liverpool, I would welcome him with open arms. Now let's move on to another right winger that I would love if he signed for Liverpool, but I do find it more unrealistic. It's the 23-year-old Ghanaian and West Ham right winger slash overall attacker, Mohammed Kudus, who in my opinion is probably the next world-class winger to come through in the Premier League. Now Kudus was arguably the most frightening and scary dribbler in the Prem last season. It looks like he glides by defenders effortlessly, and that's something I personally loved watching. His advanced stats are great too, with him being in the 93rd percentile for goals expected, 94th percentile for goals slash shots on target, 88th percentile for long passes, 87th percentile for medium distance passes, 90th percentile for crosses into the penalty area, 98th percentile for successful take-ons, 88th percentile for fouls drawn, etc. He's also great defensively for a winger too, with him having a 93rd percentile in tackles plus interceptions, 88th percentile for dribblers tackled, 95th percentile for tackles, 99th percentile for tackles won, etc. He for me would be a more ideal fit to replace Mo Salah on the right hand side compared to Takefusa Kubo, although I would love either of them. That's because Kudus' finishing is much better and closer to Salah's, with him scoring 18 goals and getting 7 assists in 48 games last season. In fact, overall, if I'm not mistaken, Kudus has almost double the amount of goals Kubo has if you compare their entire careers, despite both players being the same age. And overall, I just think that Kudus is the better player. I do find it more unlikely though that Kudus will sign for Liverpool, at least this summer. For starters, he's a superstar, meaning he's not going to like the idea of being the guy off the bench for someone else, even if it's only for a year. And all the other positions for Liverpool are pretty stacked, so who knows how much game time Kudus would get in a position that's not his natural place. And second, apparently his release clause that was active in June and next June too is 85 million euros, which is a lot of money. And although Liverpool have splurged a lot before, it's a rarity. So for Liverpool to do it again, it's going to take a miracle. Although Liverpool, please do it. Overall though, these are the players that I would love for Liverpool to sign this summer. And no, I'm not saying sign all of them obviously. I would just love it if Liverpool does sign somebody off this shortlist, because I think they would fit Arne Slot's system in one shape or form. So, do you guys agree with my player picks or have somebody else in mind? Let me know down in the comments. I would love to know what you guys think. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Twitter and my Instagram. The links are in my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to learn more about the rise of the Turkish Messi, Arda Güler, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.